How did a normal family dinner end with a waitress locking the door and asking me to promise I wouldn't pass out? Why did she insist I watch the camera footage above the table before anyone else saw it? And how did one video quietly flip the balance of power in a room where I had already been erased? I should start from the beginning, not the dinner itself, though that's where it all came apart. I mean the real beginning, the slow kind you don't notice until you're already standing in the wreckage. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. My name is Brent Marrow. I'm 41. I manage key accounts for a mid-sized logistics firm called Meridian Solutions. I'm good at what I do. Not flashy, but reliable. The kind of person clients trust because I don't oversell and I don't disappear when problems surface. I've been with the company for 12 years. I've built relationships that brought in millions, contracts that kept departments running, revenue streams that funded expansions. I thought that mattered. I thought a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. Alison, my wife, works in corporate communications for the same company. She's 38, sharp, well-dressed, the kind of person who can walk into a room and immediately assess who matters and who doesn't. We've been married for 9 years. The first 5 were good, the last 4 less so. Lately, she'd been distant, not angry, just elsewhere. She smiled at her phone more than at me. She scheduled dinners without asking if I was free. She started using phrases I didn't recognize, corporate jargon that wasn't hers, words that came from someone else's mouth. Victor Hale was the source of those phrases. He worked in her division, some kind of strategy consultant who rotated through departments offering advice no one asked for. 45, expensive watch, voice that filled rooms like smoke. He had opinions about everything: wine, politics, market trends, other people's careers, especially mine. He and his wife Naomi had become fixtures in our social calendar over the past 6 months. Alison insisted they were important connections, professional networking, career advancement. I didn't argue. I never argued. The restaurant was Alison's choice, a place called the Copper Branch. Upscale but not ostentatious. Exposed brick walls, low Edison bulb lighting, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations felt private. White tablecloths, minimalist decor. The kind of place where you paid for atmosphere as much as food. She'd made the reservation 2 weeks in advance and told me about it the day before. Victor and Naomi are joining us tomorrow night, she said, not looking up from her laptop. We were in the kitchen. She was standing at the counter. I was washing dishes. Okay, I said. Wear the blue shirt, the good one. Sure. And be on time. 7 sharp. I will. She walked away, already typing on her phone. I wore the blue shirt. We arrived separately. Alison came straight from the office. I came from a client site 30 minutes outside the city. Traffic was heavy. I got there at 7:05. Victor and Naomi were already seated when I walked in. The host led me to the table near the back, beneath an exposed beam and beside a window that looked out onto the street. Victor stood when he saw me, shook my hand with the kind of grip that lasted 2 seconds too long, firm and deliberate. He smiled like he was doing me a favor. Brent, good to see you, man. Victor. Naomi nodded from her seat. She was younger than Victor by a decade, quieter, always watching. Dark hair pulled back, minimal makeup, the kind of understated elegance that didn't need to announce itself. I liked her more than I liked him, which wasn't saying much. Alison kissed my cheek when I sat down. Her perfume was new. Something French. Expensive. I recognized the bottle from a boutique she'd dragged me into 3 months ago. We sat. Victor ordered wine without asking anyone's preference. The waiter brought menus printed on heavy cardstock. I scanned mine without reading it. My mind was still on the Patterson Industries call I'd taken in the car. So, Victor said, leaning back in his chair, one arm draped casually over the back. How's the logistics world treating you, Brent? Busy, I said. Busy, right? He smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Alison tells me you're handling some regional accounts now. That's solid work. Solid. The word landed like a stone. Not impressive, not exceptional. Solid. Naomi glanced at him, then quickly back at her menu. Alison sipped her water, watching the table. It keeps the lights on, I said. Victor laughed. Alison laughed with him. I didn't. The conversation moved on. Victor talked about a consulting project in Denver, something about restructuring a supply chain for a tech company. He used words like synergy and optimization and vertical integration. Alison nodded along, asking smart questions, engaging fully. Naomi listened politely, occasionally adding a comment. I sat there, fork in hand, eating bread I didn't taste. Halfway through the appetizers, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Patterson Industries. Again. The client was persistent. "I need to take this," I said. Alison's expression tightened. Her jaw did that thing it does when she's annoyed but trying to hide it. "Now? It's Patterson. Won't take long? Can't it wait?" "Not really." I stood, phone already pressed to my ear. Walked toward the front of the restaurant. Past tables of couples and small groups. The call connected. Bill Patterson's voice. Gruff and efficient. "Brent, sorry to bug you after hours." "No problem. What's up?" Quick question on the contract language. Section 4, subsection B. The delivery window clause. We talked for 3 minutes. Simple clarification. Nothing urgent, but Bill liked to dot every I and cross every T. When I hung up, I turned back toward the table and stopped. They were leaning in, the three of them, heads close together. Victor had my phone in his hand. I'd left it on the table. I stood there, 15 feet away, half hidden behind a column, watching. Victor's thumb moved across the screen, scrolling, tapping. Alison watched over his shoulder, her face tilted toward the light. Naomi sat back, arms crossed, her face unreadable, but her eyes sharp. Victor said something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Alison's reaction. A quiet laugh, sharp and quick. She leaned closer. He tilted the screen toward her. She nodded. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just stood there, phone still in my hand, watching my wife and her colleagues scroll through my phone like it belonged to them. Victor's lips moved again. Alison responded. They were talking about something. About me, about my phone. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the tone in their posture. Casual, comfortable, entitled. Naomi's eyes flicked toward me. She saw me standing there. Her expression shifted, something between surprise and discomfort. She looked back at Victor, said something quick. He glanced up, saw me. His face didn't change. He just placed the phone face down on the table, leaned back, and smiled. I walked back to the table, slowly, each step deliberate. Victor watched me approach. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice smooth. "Fine," I said. I sat, picked up my fork. The phone sat near my plate, screen dark. I didn't touch it. Alison's hand rested on the table, inches from Victor's. She didn't move it, didn't acknowledge what had just happened, just picked up her wine glass and took a sip. Dinner continued. Entrees arrived. Victor talked about market trends. Alison agreed with everything he said, adding insights that sounded rehearsed. Naomi's eyes flicked toward me once, twice, then stayed on her plate. I ate without tasting, listened without hearing, watched without reacting. When the check came, Victor reached for it before anyone else could. "My treat," he said. "You don't have to," I said. "I insist. Consider it an early celebration." "For what?" He smiled. "For the future." He paid with a black card. We stood. Alison thanked him warmly. Naomi smiled at me, something cautious in her expression, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. We walked out into the November cold. Victor and Naomi headed toward their car, a sleek German sedan parked at the corner. Alison's heels clicked against the pavement as we walked to ours. "That was nice," she said. I didn't answer. "Victor's such a good conversationalist, don't you think?" "Sure." "You were quiet tonight." "I was listening." She looked at me. "Are you okay?" "Fine." We drove home in silence. At the apartment, she went straight to the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen, standing at the counter, staring at the phone in my hand. I unlocked it, checked recent activity, messages, emails, call logs. Everything looked normal. Nothing deleted, nothing obviously changed. But something had happened. I felt it the way you feel a shift in air pressure before a storm arrives. I opened my email app, scrolled through sent messages. Everything appeared normal. Client correspondence, internal memos, calendar confirmations. I checked my text messages. Same thing, nothing unusual. I stood there for 10 minutes, searching for what I knew was there but couldn't see yet. Then I put the phone down, walked to the bedroom. Alison was already under the covers, eyes closed, breathing steady. I lay down beside her, stared at the ceiling, listened to the silence. Somewhere in the apartment, a clock ticked. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. By the time I reached 100, I still wasn't asleep. I just lay there, eyes open, mind running through everything I'd seen. The way Victor picked up my phone, the way Alison leaned in to watch, the way they laughed, the way Naomi looked at me. Something had changed tonight. I just didn't know what yet. The office had always been the same. Open floor plan, clusters of desks arranged in pods, glass-walled conference rooms along the perimeter, motivational posters that said things like innovate and collaborate, and excel in bold sans serif fonts. I'd worked there long enough that I could navigate it with my eyes closed. 12 years, same building, same desk, same coffee machine that never quite got the temperature right. My desk sat in the middle of the sales floor, surrounded by newer hires who rotated in and out every 18 months like seasonal crops. I was the constant, the institutional memory, the guy who knew which clients needed hand-holding and which ones preferred minimal contact. The guy who remembered which contracts had unusual clauses and which accounts were sensitive to price fluctuations. I thought stability meant value. I was wrong. It started small, so small I almost didn't notice. A meeting I wasn't invited to. An email chain I'd started but wasn't included in the follow-up. A presentation I'd built that someone else delivered without crediting the source. At first, I assumed it was oversight. People get busy. Inboxes overflow. Assistants make mistakes. But then it happened again, and again. A pattern emerged, subtle but unmistakable. 3 weeks before the dinner at the Copper Branch, I'd closed a contract with Hillman Manufacturing in Ohio, 6-figure deal, 18-month commitment with options for renewal and expansion. I'd spent 4 months building that relationship from scratch. Cold outreach, discovery calls, needs assessment, proposal drafting, negotiation, troubleshooting logistics concerns, answering questions about capacity and timelines, and contingency protocols. When the contract finally signed, I forwarded it to my manager, Martin Crowell, with a brief summary of the terms and projected revenue impact. 2 days later, Martin walked past my desk on his way to the break room. "Good work on the Ohio account," he said without stopping. "Thanks," I said. "Victor really pulled that one together." I looked up from my screen. "What?" But Martin was already gone, disappearing around the corner toward the coffee station. I sat there, staring at the empty space where he'd been standing. Victor had never touched that account. He'd never spoken to the client. He didn't even know what Hillman Manufacturing produced. I'd handled every single interaction from start to finish. I opened my email, searched for Victor's name in the Ohio correspondence thread. Nothing. I checked the shared drive where we stored contract files, found the Hillman folder, opened the activity log. Victor's name appeared twice, both times in the last 48 hours. He'd viewed the final signed contract and the client correspondence summary. That was it. He'd read my work. And somehow, in Martin's mind, that translated to credit for closing the deal. I closed the folder, leaned back in my chair. Across the open office space, through the glass wall of Conference Room B, I could see Victor standing at the head of the table. He was pointing at something on a slide deck. Martin sat at the table, arms crossed, nodding, smiling. I turned back to my screen, opened a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Timeline. Then I went back to work. That night, Alison came home late. She dropped her bag on the kitchen counter with a heavy thud, kicked off her heels, and rubbed her feet. "Long day?" I asked. I was at the stove, heating up leftovers. "Victor's got me working on a new pitch," she said, pulling her hair out of its clip. "Big client. Could be huge for the communications division." "That's good. He thinks I should take the lead on the presentation, says I have the right energy for it." "You should take the lead. You're good at presentations." She smiled, but it was distracted, already looking at her phone. "He's really good at this stuff, you know. Strategy, positioning, reading the room. He sees things other people miss." "Yeah," I said, stirring pasta that didn't need stirring. She scrolled through something. Probably email. "He thinks I could move into a senior role within a year if I play this right." "That's great, Alison." "Yeah." She looked up briefly. "How was your day?" "Busy." "Good." She was looking at her phone again. I plated the food, set it on the counter. She picked at it while typing. "I'm going to work in the bedroom for a bit," she said after 3 bites. "This pitch is due Friday." "Okay." She took her plate and her phone and disappeared down the hall. I stayed in the kitchen, ate standing at the counter, washed the dishes, wiped down surfaces that were already clean. Then I opened my laptop, started compiling files. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. The floor was empty except for a few people from the operations team who worked weird hours. I made coffee, sat at my desk, opened my calendar. 3 meetings scheduled for today. 2 of them were flagged as optional for me. I clicked on the first one, strategy review for a client I'd been managing for 5 years. Northbrook Logistics, one of my oldest accounts. Attendees, Martin Crowell, Victor Hale, 2 junior analysts from the operations team. My name wasn't listed. I clicked on the second meeting. Budget reallocation discussion for Q4. Same thing. Victor was there. Martin was there. I wasn't. The third meeting was client onboarding for a new account. That one included me, as optional. I stared at the screen. 5 years managing an account, and I was optional for the strategy review. 2 months on payroll, and Victor was essential. I didn't send an email asking why, didn't schedule a meeting with Martin to clarify. I just opened the timeline folder and started documenting. I copied every contract I'd negotiated in the past 3 years, every email thread where I'd been the primary contact, every meeting note I'd compiled. I organized them by client, by date, by revenue impact. I built a comprehensive map of my own work, a detailed record of what I'd done and when. It took 3 hours. When I finished, I sat back and looked at the file structure. 12 years, 43 active accounts, $8 million in annual revenue attributed to my portfolio. I didn't print anything. I didn't need physical copies yet. I just needed to know the record existed, that it was organized, that it was accessible. I saved everything to a secure cloud drive, added password protection. Then I closed the laptop and went to get more coffee. In the break room, I overheard 2 people from finance talking. "Did you see Victor's presentation yesterday?" one of them said. A woman I vaguely recognized but had never spoken to. "Which one?" the other replied. "The market analysis. Martin loved it." "Victor's good, sharp, knows how to sell an idea." "Think he's here long term?" "Probably. Martin's already talking about expanding his role." I poured coffee I didn't want. Walked back to my desk. At lunch, I sat in my car in the parking garage. Checked my phone. A text from Alison. "Dinner with Victor and Naomi next week, confirmed for Thursday." I scrolled up through our previous messages. 2 weeks ago, she'd asked if I was free on Thursday. I'd said yes, but the reservation had been made before she asked me. I could see it in the calendar invite that popped up later. The reservation timestamp predated her question by 4 days. I put the phone down, started the car, sat there with the engine running, heat blasting, staring at the concrete wall in front of me. Then I turned off the engine, went back inside, sat at my desk, opened the timeline folder, added a new note. Calendar discrepancies, Alison, Victor, dinner reservation. That afternoon, a coworker stopped by my desk. Younger guy, maybe 27, eager, always asking questions. His name was Drake. He worked in client services. "Hey, Brent," he said, leaning against the partition. "Quick question." "Yeah?" "Why'd you let Victor take over the Cincinnati account?" I looked at him. Really looked. "What are you talking about?" "Cincinnati. Barton Industrial. I thought that was your account?" "It is my account." "Oh." He shifted his weight, suddenly uncomfortable. "Victor mentioned in the meeting this morning that he was handling the renewal negotiation." "He said that?" "Yeah, in the client services sync. He was giving an update on active renewals." "Right," I said slowly. Drake waited for me to say more. When I didn't, he nodded awkwardly and walked away. I opened my email. Searched for Cincinnati. Found the renewal thread. The most recent message was from Victor, sent directly to the client contact, a man named Ron Barton. The message was professional, friendly, confident. It confirmed a call scheduled for next week to discuss renewal terms. Victor had signed it with his title, copied Martin. He hadn't copied me. I checked the message timestamp, sent yesterday afternoon, while I was in back-to-back calls with other clients. I closed the email, opened the timeline folder, added the Cincinnati correspondence, noted the date, the time, the fact that I'd been excluded. Then I went back to work. That night, Alison was on the phone when I got home. I could hear Victor's voice through the speaker, low and confident, that smooth consultant cadence. She was laughing at something he said. I walked past her into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out my phone, opened the calendar app. The dinner was in 4 days, Thursday, 7 p.m., the Copper Branch. I clicked on the event details, looked at the attendee list: Victor Hale, Naomi Hale, Alison Marrow, Brent Marrow. I clicked on the edit history. The original invitation had been created 2 weeks ago. It listed 3 people: Victor, Naomi, Alison. My name had been added 3 days later. I'd been an afterthought. I put the phone down, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling. From the living room, I could still hear Alison's voice. Still laughing, still engaged. I closed my eyes, counted to 100 again, opened them. Nothing had changed. I got up, went to the small corner of the apartment I used as a home office. A desk wedged beside the bookshelf, a lamp, a filing cabinet I'd bought at an office supply store 6 years ago. I pulled out the timeline folder, spread the printed documents across the desk, added the new notes from today. Then I sat back and looked at it all. It wasn't evidence yet, not the kind that would hold up in a formal complaint, but it was close. I just needed more. The parking garage under the Meridian Solutions building smelled like motor oil and concrete dust. I sat in my car with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, phone dark in the cup holder beside me. It was Tuesday, 2 days before the dinner. I'd stopped trying to fix things, stopped asking questions, stopped pretending I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. Instead, I started watching, really watching. I watched the way Alison's face changed when Victor's name appeared on her phone screen, the micro-expression, the slight softening around her eyes, the quick upturn at the corners of her mouth. I watched the way she angled her screen away from me when she typed responses, her thumb moving fast, practiced. I watched the way her vocabulary had shifted over the past 6 months, words like synergy and leverage and bandwidth that she'd never used before, phrases that came out smooth and confident, borrowed wholesale from someone else's lexicon. I watched the way Victor moved through the office, the way people stepped aside when he walked down the aisles between desks, the way conversations paused when he entered a room, the way Martin's voice changed when he spoke to him, softer, more deferential, like he was talking to someone whose opinion actually mattered. I watched the calendar invites that arrived without my name, the email threads I'd started that continued without me, the meetings that happened behind glass walls I couldn't see through. I wasn't angry, I was awake. That morning, I'd gone to the break room to refill my coffee. The industrial-sized pot was half empty, the coffee inside lukewarm and bitter. I was pouring it anyway when I heard Victor's voice from around the corner. He was talking to someone from the finance department, a guy named Greg who handled budget allocations. "Brent's a solid guy," Victor was saying. His tone was casual, almost dismissive. "But he's, temporary." Temporary. The word hung in the air like smoke. I stood there, coffee pot in hand, frozen. "Temporary how?" Greg asked. "Just a feeling. He's been here a while, comfortable. But the industry's changing. Clients want fresh thinking, someone who can adapt." "You think Martin's looking to replace him?" "I think Martin's looking at options." They moved on to a different topic, budget projections, something about Q1 forecasts. I poured my coffee, walked back to my desk, sat down, opened the timeline folder, added a new note. Break room, Victor, 9:47 a.m. Temporary. Then I went back to work. At 11, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Brent Marrow. "Mr. Marrow, this is Ron Barton, Barton Industrial. Cincinnati, the renewal account." "Ron, good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I got a message from someone named Victor Hale. Says he's taking over our renewal negotiation." I paused, kept my voice steady. "That's news to me, Ron. You and I have been working together for 3 years. I wasn't aware of any transition." "That's what I thought. Seemed odd. I prefer working with you, if I'm being honest. You know our operation." "I appreciate that. Let me look into this on my end and get back to you today." "Sounds good. Thanks, Brent." He hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone. Then I opened my email, composed a new message to Martin. "Martin, I received a call from Ron Barton at Barton Industrial. He mentioned Victor reached out about the renewal. Can we clarify account ownership? I've been managing this relationship since 2021. Happy to discuss." I read it 3 times, removed the word happy, added it back, sent it. The reply came 20 minutes later. "Brent, Victor's been consulting on a few accounts to provide strategic input. It's collaborative, not a replacement. Let's touch base Friday." Collaborative, not a replacement. I read the message again, saved it to the timeline folder, didn't respond. That afternoon, Alison called. "Can you pick up dinner tonight?" she asked, no greeting. "Sure, what do you want?" "Anything. I'm stuck in a meeting." "Okay. Victor's running it. Probably another hour." "Got it." She hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to dead air. Victor's running it. Not, "I'm in a meeting," not, "We're running late." Victor. I put the phone down, opened my desk drawer, pulled out a pocket notebook, wrote a single word at the top of a fresh page, pattern. Underneath, I listed everything I'd noticed in the past month. Meetings without me. Credit for Ohio account, Cincinnati outreach without notification, Alison's language shift, phone access at dinner, upcoming, calendar edit, added after initial invite, temporary. I stared at the list. Then I tore out the page, folded it twice, and slipped it into my wallet. At home that night, I picked up Thai food. Alison arrived an hour after I did, carrying her laptop bag and a leather portfolio I'd never seen before. "Sorry I'm late," she said, not sounding sorry. "No problem." She set her things down, kicked off her shoes, came into the kitchen, kissed my cheek absently. "How was the meeting?" I asked. "Productive. Victor's approach is really changing how we think about messaging. He's got this framework for aligning narrative strategy with stakeholder expectations." "Sounds useful." "It is." She opened the takeout containers, started eating standing up. "He thinks I'm ready for a bigger role, maybe director level." "That's great." "Yeah." She was looking at her phone again. I watched her scroll, watched her smile at something on the screen, watched her type a quick response. "Who's that?" I asked. "Just work stuff." "Victor?" She looked up. Something flickered across her face. Irritation, maybe, or defensiveness. "Yeah, he's sending notes from the meeting." "At 8 p.m.? He works late." "Right." She put the phone down, looked at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just an observation." It sounded like something. It wasn't. We stood there, 3 feet apart, the kitchen island between us. "I'm going to work in the bedroom," she said finally. "This presentation's due end of week." "Okay." She took her food and left. I stayed in the kitchen, finished eating, cleaned up, wiped down the counter until it gleamed. Then I went to my corner office space. The desk was cluttered with papers, files, a coffee mug I'd forgotten about. I cleared it all, opened my laptop, pulled up the timeline folder. I'd been building it methodically, quietly, for 3 weeks now. Every contract I'd closed, every client relationship I'd nurtured, every email thread that proved ownership and timeline. I added today's notes: Ron Barton's call, Martin's response, Victor's break room comment. Then I started a new document, a summary, a narrative that connected all the data points into a coherent story. It took 2 hours. When I finished, I saved everything, backed it up to 3 different locations: cloud storage, external drive, email draft saved to a secondary account. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. Thursday was 2 days away, the dinner at the Copper Branch. I thought about the restaurant, the layout, the tables, the lighting, and I thought about something else: security cameras. I'd noticed them the first time I'd been there, 8 months ago, for a work dinner. Small, unobtrusive, mounted in corners and above the bar. The kind of system restaurants use for liability protection, for resolving payment disputes, for monitoring staff. I'd worked in logistics long enough to understand how those systems operated. Digital recording, 30-day storage minimum, sometimes 60 or 90, depending on the setup. Accessible to management, sometimes to law enforcement with a warrant, rarely to customers, but not never. I opened my laptop again, searched for the Copper Branch's website, found it. Clean design, professional photos, a menu that emphasized locally sourced ingredients and craft cocktails. I clicked through to the About page, scrolled down. There was a section on safety and security, corporate language about guest protection and service quality. We maintain a secure environment through comprehensive monitoring and staff training protocols. Comprehensive monitoring. I closed the browser, leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling. An idea was forming, not fully developed yet. Just the outline of something. I didn't act on it. Not yet. I just let it sit there, taking shape in the back of my mind. The next day, Wednesday, I left work early. Told my manager I had a client call. He nodded without looking up from his screen. I drove to a cafe 3 blocks from the office, a place called Roast and Grind. Neutral territory, quiet, good coffee. I ordered an Americano, sat in a corner booth, pulled out my phone, searched for the Copper Branch on Google Maps, found their business listing, clicked through to the website again. This time, I looked for contact information. Found an email address for general inquiries, a phone number for reservations. I opened a new email draft. To whom it may concern, I had dinner at your establishment last month and experienced a personal incident that I'd like to clarify using security footage. Could you please advise on your policy for customer access to recorded material? Thank you, Brent Marrow. I read it 5 times, edited the language, made it more formal, less accusatory. Then I saved it as a draft, didn't send it, not yet. I needed to see what happened tomorrow night first. I finished my coffee, drove home. Alison was getting ready for an evening event, some networking thing downtown. "I'll be back late," she said, applying lipstick in the bathroom mirror. "Okay." Victor and some people from his last company are meeting for drinks. He invited a few of us from the division. Have fun. Thanks. She grabbed her purse, checked her phone. Oh, don't forget about tomorrow, 7 p.m., the Copper Branch. I remember. Wear the blue shirt? I will. She left. I stood in the empty apartment, walked to the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out the blue shirt, looked at it for a long moment. Then I hung it on the door handle. Ready for tomorrow. I spent the rest of the evening organizing the timeline folder, making sure everything was in order, every document labeled, every date verified, every piece of evidence cross-referenced. By midnight, it was complete. I closed the laptop, went to bed, lay in the dark. Tomorrow was Thursday. Tomorrow something would either happen or it wouldn't. Either way, I'd be ready. Thursday arrived cold and gray, November in the Midwest. The kind of morning where the sky never fully brightens, just shifts from black to a dull, oppressive slate. I went to work like nothing had changed, answered emails, took calls, reviewed contract amendments for a client in Wisconsin, participated in a conference call about logistics optimization. I moved through the office like I always had, steady and unremarkable, the human equivalent of background noise. But I was paying attention to everything now. At 9:30, Victor walked past my desk. He nodded. I nodded back. Brief, professional, meaningless. At 10:15, I saw him through the glass wall of conference room B. And he was presenting something to Martin and two other people I didn't recognize, probably consultants from another division. Victor pointed at a slide, made a gesture that suggested confidence. Martin laughed at something he said. At 11, I checked the calendar. The dinner reservation was still there. 7 p.m., 4 attendees, the Copper Branch. I closed the calendar, opened the timeline folder. Everything was organized, comprehensive, ready. I added one more document, a list of questions. What exactly did Victor access on my phone? Did he send messages? Did he read emails? What did Alison see? What did they discuss? I saved the document, closed the laptop. At noon, I went to the parking garage, sat in my car, didn't turn on the engine, just sat there in the cold, thinking. The restaurant had cameras. I was almost certain of that. The question was whether I could access the footage, whether it would show what I thought it would show, whether it would matter. I pulled out my phone, opened the draft email I'd written yesterday, read it again, changed 2 words, made it slightly more formal. Then I sent it. The reply came 90 minutes later. Professional. Measured. Cautious. Dear Mr. Marrow, thank you for your inquiry. We take customer privacy and security seriously. Our policy is that security footage is not released without formal legal documentation or law enforcement request. However, if you believe there has been a service-related issue or dispute, we would be happy to discuss the matter in person. Please contact our manager, Elena Brooks, at the number below. I read the message 3 times, then I called the number. A woman answered on the second ring. Professional voice. Warm, but not overly friendly. The Copper Branch, this is Elena. Hi, Elena. My name is Brent Marrow. I just received an email response from your general inquiries address. Yes, I sent that. What can I help you with, Mr. Marrow? I was at your restaurant 2 weeks ago. There was an incident involving my personal property. My phone. I'd like to review security footage to clarify what happened. Silence on the other end. Not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. What kind of incident? She asked. Someone at my table accessed my phone without permission while I stepped away. I need to verify what was done with it. And you think this is documented on our security system? I'm hoping it is. Another pause. I can't release footage to customers without proper authorization, she said. But if you'd like to come in and speak with me directly, I can review what we have and determine if there's something actionable. When would work for you? Are you available this afternoon? Say 3 o'clock? I checked my watch. It was 1:15. I can be there at 3. I'll see you then, Mr. Marrow. She hung up. I sat in my car for another 5 minutes. Then I drove back to the office, sent a message to my manager saying I had a personal appointment and would be out for the rest of the afternoon. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. At 2:30, I left. The Copper Branch looked different in daylight, less atmospheric, more utilitarian. The Edison bulbs were off, the tables were empty, chairs stacked on top of them. A woman in black pants and a white button-down shirt stood near the bar, reviewing something on a tablet. She looked up when I walked in. Brent, she asked. Yes? I'm Elena. She was younger than I expected. Late 20s, maybe 30. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Professional, but not stiff. She extended her hand. I shook it. Thanks for meeting me, I said. Of course. Let's sit. She gestured to a booth near the window. We sat across from each other. So, she said, folding her hands on the table, tell me what happened. I explained. Calmly, factually, without emotion. The dinner 2 weeks ago, the business call, leaving my phone on the table, returning to see it in someone else's hand. She listened without interrupting, nodded occasionally, took no notes. And you believe this is connected to something work-related? She asked when I finished. Yes. How so? The person who accessed my phone has been taking credit for my work. If he sent messages or accessed confidential information, it could serve as evidence of a pattern. She leaned back, crossed her arms, studied me. That's very specific, she said. I know. And you want to see the footage? If it exists, yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. I can't just hand you footage, she said. There are protocols, privacy concerns, liability issues. I understand. But, she paused. If I review the footage and see something that involves unauthorized access to your property, that changes the situation. Meaning? Meaning I can make a determination about whether it's appropriate to share with you or whether I should recommend you pursue this through other channels. Like? HR, legal, depending on what I see. I nodded. That's fair. She stood. Follow me. We walked through the dining area, past the bar, through a door marked staff only, down a narrow hallway, past the kitchen where I could hear the clatter of prep work and someone speaking Spanish, up a narrow staircase. At the top was a small office, cluttered desk, file cabinets, a wall of monitors showing different angles of the restaurant floor. Elena sat down at the desk, pulled up a menu on the main screen. The interface looked professional. Timestamps, camera angles, date filters. What was the date? She asked. I told her. She typed it in. The screen flickered. Footage appeared. Multiple camera angles. The dining room from different perspectives. What time did you arrive? She asked. 7 p.m. She fast-forwarded, slowed, stopped, played at normal speed. I saw myself walking in, saw the host leading me to the table, saw Victor and Naomi already seated, saw Alison arriving moments later. Elena zoomed in on our table, adjusted the playback speed. We watched in silence. Appetizers, wine, conversation. Everything looked normal. Then I saw myself stand, walk out of frame. Elena paused. This is when you left to take the call? She asked. Yes. She played it again. Normal speed. On the monitor, Victor leaned back in his chair, said something to Alison, reached across the table, picked up my phone. Elena leaned closer to the screen. Victor's thumb moved across the screen, scrolling, tapping. Alison leaned in. Naomi sat back, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable. Victor typed something, showed the screen to Alison. She nodded. He placed the phone back on the table. Elena paused the footage. He accessed your phone, she said. Yes. Without permission. Correct. She rewound, played it again. This time she zoomed in further. I could see Victor's expression, the casual confidence, the smile. I could see Alison's face leaning close, reading something on the screen. Elena paused again, looked at me. Do you want a copy of this? She asked. Can I have one? Not directly, but if you're planning to involve HR or legal counsel, I can make it available to them. We can provide official documentation with timestamps. That works. She made a note on a pad of paper. Then she looked back at the screen. There's something else, she said. What? She rewound further. Stopped at a different section, before I'd left the table. Audio's not great, but we can hear some of it. She turned up the volume, adjusted some settings. On screen, Victor was leaning toward Alison, their heads close together. Naomi wasn't in the frame. Victor's voice came through, faint but audible. He's not going to last much longer, trust me. Alison's response was quieter. I couldn't make out the exact words, but the tone was clear. Agreement, amusement. Elena stopped the playback, looked at me. I think you need to sit down, she said. I was already sitting. I mean, really prepare yourself, she said, because there's more. She played another section. Victor with my phone, opening something, his thumb scrolling deliberately. That's your email app, Elena said quietly. I watched as Victor typed, showed the screen to Alison. She said something. He adjusted the text. Hit send. The timestamp appeared in the corner, 7:23 p.m. He sent an email from your account, Elena said. Yes. She played more. Victor and Alison talking, low voices. I couldn't hear all of it, but I caught fragments. Doesn't even notice. He never does. Elena paused, turned to me. How much do you want to see? She asked. All of it. She played the rest. 5 more minutes of footage. Conversations I wasn't part of, gestures I wasn't meant to see, a relationship playing out in a space I'd temporarily vacated. When it finished, Elena sat back in her chair. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. That's a lot to process. I've had practice. She almost smiled. You're very calm. I've been preparing for this. She looked at the frozen image on the screen, Victor's hand on my phone, Alison watching, both of them comfortable, entitled, unaware that anyone would ever see this. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I'm going to make sure the right people see this footage. HR? Among others. She nodded, started typing. I'll prepare an official file, timestamps, video segments, audio where available. I can send it directly to whoever you designate. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. Once this goes official, it gets messy. Workplace politics, possible legal action, it won't be clean. It's already messy. She looked at me, something like respect in her expression. Yeah, she said. I guess it is. 20 minutes later, I walked out of the Copper Branch with Elena's business card and a confirmation that the footage would be ready to share within 24 hours. I sat in my car in the parking lot, engine off, hands on the wheel. Then I pulled out my phone, found Pauline Finch's contact information, the HR compliance manager I'd spoken to briefly 3 weeks ago, composed a text message. It's not hypothetical anymore. I need to meet. Sent it. Her reply came within 2 minutes. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., my office. I typed back. I'll be there. Put the phone down. Started the car. Tonight was still happening. The dinner, round 2 at the Copper Branch. But now I knew what to expect. Now I knew what they'd done. And soon, everyone else would too. I drove home, showered, put on the blue shirt. Alison was already dressed when I came out of the bathroom. Ready? She asked. Yes. We drove in silence. The Copper Branch looked exactly as it had 2 weeks ago. Warm lighting, exposed brick, the smell of garlic and wine. The host greeted us with professional efficiency, led us to the same table near the back, beneath the same beam, beside the same window. Victor and Naomi were already seated. Victor stood when we approached. Same handshake, same smile. Good to see you both, he said. Naomi nodded. She looked tired. Something different in her eyes tonight. Something cautious. We sat. The same waiter from last time brought menus. Victor ordered wine without asking. The conversation started the same way. Work, clients, industry trends. Victor dominated, as always. Alison engaged, as always. I listened, but this time I was counting. Counting the minutes until my phone would ring, counting the cameras, counting the ways this could play out. At 7:45, right on schedule, my phone buzzed. I'd set it up beforehand. A delayed text from myself made it look like an incoming call. I need to take this, I said. Alison's expression tightened. Again? It's Patterson. Same issue from last time. Victor leaned back. Client management never stops, right? Right. I stood, walked toward the front. This time I didn't go outside. I stood near the entrance, half hidden by the same column, and watched. It took exactly 15 seconds. Victor reached across the table, picked up my phone. But this time, the phone was locked. Passcode protected. I'd changed the settings yesterday. I watched him try to swipe, fail, show Alison. She frowned, said something. He put the phone back down. I waited another minute. Then I walked back to the table. Victor looked up. Something had shifted in his expression. Not quite suspicion, but awareness. Everything okay? He asked. Fine, I said. I sat, picked up my phone, unlocked it with my thumb, put it in my pocket. Alison watched me. Why'd you lock it? Security update, automatic. Since when do you lock your phone? Since IT sent out a policy reminder. She didn't respond. Dinner continued, but the energy had changed. Victor was still talking, but he seemed slightly off balance. Naomi was quieter than before. When the check came, Victor reached for it again. My treat, he said. You paid last time, I said. I don't mind. I'll get it this time. He paused, then smiled. Sure, thanks, Brent. I paid with my card. We stood, walked out. Outside, Victor and Naomi headed to their car. Alison and I walked to ours. "That was weird," Alison said. "What was?" "You. The phone thing. Paying for dinner." "I was just being polite." "You're never that insistent." "Maybe I should be." She looked at me, something in her expression I couldn't quite read. We drove home in silence. At the apartment, she went to the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen, pulled out my phone, sent a message to Elena. "Happened again. Same pattern. Phone was locked this time. He tried anyway." Her reply came fast. "I'll add it to the file." I put the phone away, went to my office corner, opened the laptop, added notes to the timeline folder. Second dinner. Victor attempted phone access, failed due to passcode. Alison questioned security change. Then I prepared for tomorrow. The meeting with Pauline was at 8 a.m. I needed to bring everything: documentation, timeline, witness information, Elena's contact details. I organized it all into a single folder, printed key documents, put them in a leather portfolio I'd bought years ago and never used. By midnight, everything was ready. I went to bed. Alison was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay in the dark, eyes open, running through tomorrow's conversation in my head. At 6, I showered, dressed, business casual, clean. Alison woke at 6:30. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." "Everything okay?" "Fine, just work stuff." She nodded, went to make her own coffee. I left at 7:15, drove to the office, parked in my usual spot, sat in the car until 7:55. Then I walked inside, took the elevator to the 4th floor, HR offices. Pauline's office was at the end of the hall, glass walls, door closed. I knocked. She looked up, gestured for me to enter. "Brent, come in, sit." I sat, put the portfolio on her desk. "Thank you for meeting me," I said. "Of course. You said it wasn't hypothetical anymore." "It's not." She opened her notebook, picked up a pen. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. I started with the pattern, the meetings I wasn't invited to, the accounts where credit had shifted, the calendar edits, Ron Barton's call about Cincinnati. Then I told her about the dinners, both of them, what I'd seen, what Elena had captured on camera. I opened the portfolio, slid the printed timeline across the desk. Pauline read in silence, flipped through pages, made notes. After 20 minutes, she looked up. "This is comprehensive," she said. "I've been documenting for a while." "And the restaurant footage?" "The manager is preparing an official file. She'll send it directly to you if you provide contact information." Pauline made another note. "Your wife works here," she said. "Yes." She was present during the phone access. "Yes." Pauline put down her pen, leaned back. "This is complicated," she said. "I know." "What do you want, Brent?" I met her eyes. "I want the record corrected. I want credit restored for the accounts I built. I want Victor's unauthorized access documented and addressed." "And your wife?" I paused. "That's separate," I said. Pauline nodded. "I'll need to bring this to Martin Crowell and to legal," she said. "I understand." "It's going to take time. There are procedures. I'm prepared to wait." She closed the notebook. "I'll be in touch by end of day," she said. I stood, shook her hand. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." I left her office, walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, I stepped out and went back to work. The call came at 4:30 that afternoon. Pauline's name on my phone screen. I stepped away from my desk, walked to the parking garage, answered. "Brent, we need to meet again. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., conference room D." "Who else will be there?" "Martin Crowell, Kalia Hastings from legal, and me." "Okay. Bring everything you have." "I will." She hung up. I stood in the garage, phone in hand, breathing cold concrete air. Then I went back inside, finished my work, left at 5:30. At home, Alison was in the bedroom, on a video call. I heard Victor's voice through the door. I went to my office corner, opened the timeline folder, reviewed everything one more time. Then I printed additional copies, organized them, put them in the portfolio. Alison came out at 7. "I'm ordering dinner," she said. "You want anything?" "No, thanks." She looked at me. "You've been quiet." "Just tired." "Work?" "Yeah." She ordered food, ate in the living room. I stayed at my desk. At 9, she came to the doorway. "Are you coming to bed?" "Soon." "Brent." I looked up. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. You just seem off." "I'm fine." She stared at me for another moment, then left. I worked until midnight. Then I closed the laptop, went to bed. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 8:30, went straight to conference room D. Martin was already there. So was Pauline. A woman I didn't know sat at the head of the table, mid-50s, gray suit, sharp eyes. "Brent Marrow," she asked. "Yes." "Kalia Hastings, corporate counsel. Please sit." I sat, placed the portfolio on the table. Kalia opened a laptop. "Ms. Finch has briefed us on your concerns. We've also received documentation from the Copper branch regarding security footage. Before we proceed, I want to clarify our process." I nodded. "This is a preliminary review. We'll examine the evidence, interview relevant parties, determine if formal action is warranted. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good. Let's begin." For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything: the timeline, the accounts, the credit shifts, the calendar edits, the phone access, the footage. Kalia took notes on her laptop. Martin listened, his expression unreadable. Pauline occasionally asked clarifying questions. When I finished, Kalia closed her laptop. "We'll need to interview Victor Hale," she said, "and potentially your wife." "I understand." "Victor will be placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. His access to client accounts will be suspended immediately." Martin shifted in his seat. "Is that necessary?" Kalia looked at him. "Given the evidence of unauthorized device access and potential client communication interference, yes." Martin nodded slowly. "Mr. Marrow," Kalia said, "you'll need to remain available for follow-up questions. We'll also be conducting our own review of email logs and calendar records." "Of course." "That's all for now." I stood, picked up the portfolio. "Thank you," I said. Kalia nodded. "We'll be in touch." I left the conference room, walked to my desk, sat down. Across the office, I could see Victor's desk, empty. I opened my email, started working. At 11, my phone buzzed, a text from Alison. "HR just called me in. What's going on?" I stared at the message, didn't reply. 20 minutes later, another text. "Brent, answer me." I turned off my phone, went back to work. That afternoon, Pauline stopped by my desk. "Victor's been escorted out," she said quietly. "Security revoked his building access." "Okay." "Your wife completed her interview. She confirmed being present during the phone access incident." I nodded. "How are you holding up?" Pauline asked. "Fine." She studied me. "You're very calm about this." "I've had time to process." She nodded. "The investigation will take approximately 2 weeks. We'll update you as we progress." "Thank you." She walked away. I sat at my desk, looked at the empty space where Victor used to sit. Then I opened the timeline folder, added a final note. "Administrative leave. Building access revoked. Investigation initiated." Closed the folder, went back to work. Alison didn't come home that night. I got a text at 8 p.m. Staying at a hotel. We need space." I didn't respond. The apartment was quiet. I made dinner, ate alone, cleaned up, went to bed early. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of routine, work, home, sleep, repeat. HR called me in twice more for follow-up questions. I answered everything, provided additional documentation when requested, stayed professional. On day 9, Pauline sent an email. "Investigation complete. Meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 10 a.m. Conference room D." I arrived at 9:50. Kalia and Pauline were already there. Martin came in at 10 exactly. Kalia opened her laptop. "We've completed our review," she said. "Here are our findings." She read from the screen. Victor had accessed my phone without authorization. Security footage confirmed it. He had sent an email from my account to Ron Barton at Barton Industrial, scheduling a meeting without my knowledge. Email logs proved it. He had taken credit for accounts I'd built. Internal records showed my work predated his involvement by years. He had made disparaging comments about my employment status. Multiple witnesses confirmed it. "Based on these findings," Kalia said, "Victor Hale's employment has been terminated effective immediately." Martin cleared his throat. "And Brent's accounts?" "All account ownership has been restored to Mr. Marrow. Internal records have been corrected. Any performance reviews or bonus calculations affected by the misattribution will be adjusted accordingly." I nodded. "Regarding your wife," Kalia continued, "she violated no company policies. Her presence during the phone access incident was passive. However, we've recommended she recuse herself from any projects involving former collaborations with Mr. Hale." "Understood," I said. "Do you have questions?" Kalia asked. "No." "Then we're done here." I stood, shook hands, left. At my desk, I opened my email, a message from Martin. "Brent, let's talk. My office, this afternoon." I replied. 2 p.m. works. At 2, I walked to Martin's office. He gestured to a chair. "I owe you an apology," he said. I waited. I should have been paying closer attention. I let Victor's presence overshadow the facts. "Yes," he blinked. "I'm working to make sure this doesn't happen again." Good. "Your accounts are secure. Your position is secure. And we're reviewing internal attribution processes." I nodded. "Is there anything else you need?" he asked. "No." I stood, left his office. That night, Alison came to the apartment to get her things. I was in the kitchen when she arrived. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She walked to the bedroom, started packing. I stayed in the kitchen. Didn't help, didn't interfere. After 30 minutes, she came out with 2 suitcases. "I'm sorry," she said. "Okay." I didn't know what Victor was doing. I didn't realize... "You knew enough." She looked down. "I'll have the rest moved out this weekend." "Fine." She left. I locked the door behind her, sat on the couch, stared at nothing. Then I got up, went to my desk, opened the timeline folder. Everything was documented. Everything was resolved. I closed the folder, shut down the laptop, and moved on. 3 weeks later, I was sitting at my desk when Martin stopped by. "Brent, got a minute?" "Sure." He sat in the empty chair beside my desk. "I wanted to update you," he said. "We're restructuring the regional accounts division." I waited. "We need someone to oversee the entire portfolio, someone who knows the clients, someone trustworthy." "Okay. I'd like it to be you." I looked at him. That was Victor's role. It was never really his role. It should have been yours from the start. "What's the timeline?" "Immediate, if you're interested." "I am." He smiled. "Good. We'll formalize it next week. Salary increase, new title, full authority over regional strategy." "Thank you." He stood. "You earned it." After he left, I sat at my desk, stared at my screen. Then I opened my email, sent a message to Ron Barton. "Ron, I wanted to update you. I'll be overseeing all regional accounts moving forward. Looking forward to our continued partnership." His reply came within minutes. "Excellent news, Brent. You've always been our go-to. Congratulations." I closed the email, leaned back, looked around the office. 12 years, overlooked, dismissed, erased. But I'd rebuilt it all, quietly, with evidence and patience. Now I was exactly where I should have been. At lunch, I drove past the Copper Branch. Didn't stop, just looked. Then I kept driving. That night, Alison called. "I heard about your promotion," she said. "News travels. Congratulations, you deserve it." "Thank you." Silence. "Brent, I need to go." "Okay." I hung up, deleted her contact, moved on. The next month passed smoothly. I settled into the new role, managed the regional portfolio, rebuilt relationships Victor had damaged, established clear protocols for account ownership. Martin checked in weekly. Things were stable. One afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Brent Marrow." "Brent, it's Naomi." I paused. "Naomi. I know this is unexpected. Can we talk?" "About?" "About what happened. About Victor." I checked my calendar. 4 p.m., the cafe on 7th. I'll be there. At 4, I walked into Roast and Grind. Naomi sat in a corner booth. She looked different, lighter. I sat down. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. "What do you want?" I wanted to apologize. For that night. For not saying anything. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I didn't do anything right either." I waited. I knew Victor was difficult. I just didn't realize how far it went. "You saw him use my phone." "I did, and I should have said something." "Why didn't you?" She was quiet. "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of him? Of what he'd do if I challenged him." I watched her. "I left him," she said. 3 weeks ago." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was overdue." She looked at me. "I wanted you to know that I saw what he did, and I'm sorry I didn't speak up." "Okay. That's it? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. That you forgive me." "I understand why you didn't. I don't know about forgiveness yet." She nodded. "Fair." We sat quietly. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Start over. Find myself again." "Good luck." "Thanks. Take care, Brent." You too. She left. I finished my coffee, drove home. That night, I opened the timeline folder one last time, looked through everything, the evidence, the documentation, the proof. Then I archived it, moved it to secure storage, closed the laptop. I didn't need it anymore, but I'd keep it, just in case. 12 years of being invisible, 12 years of having my work stolen, 12 years of being called temporary, but I'd won. Not with anger, not with confrontation, with evidence, with patience, with cameras and timestamps and the quiet, undeniable truth.